putting the nut blocks into the nut block holders to secure the leg extensions. The leg extensions have been pre-marked to 12 inches, so as the assembly of the lift goes on, it'll be that much easier. After placing the leg extension into the lift frame, we will now secure the bolts that we put the block nuts in for earlier. Make sure you hand tighten them with a 3/4 wrench. After installing the leg extensions on the opposite side frame, you will stand both side frames up and begin the next step, which is the installation of the rear and front frame spreaders. These are secured using the 3/8 by 1 inch bolts provided in the bolt assembly pack. Use a 9/16 wrench to secure them into place. Before tightening the side frames to the frame spreaders, be sure to push the side frames out. After securing the frame spreaders to the side frames, we will now begin the next step, which is the installation of the winch. For this step, you will need 2 of the 3/8 by 4.5 inch bolts and 4 of the washers that are 3/8 in size also. You will notice the difference of the winch post because there are no brackets, as you can see on this post here. To make this easier on yourself, you will want to install the first bolt that will go towards the top of the frame. And also a side note, if you plan on installing a canopy for your frame, you will want to install one of the lock nuts provided for that. You will want to continue the process by putting the other bolt on the back side of the winch. These will be secured using a 9/16 wrench. To make sure the winch is at the proper height, make a mark a 1/2 inch from the top of the post, and that will be where the top of your winch bracket is located. First, secure the bottom bolt and then the top bolt. The bottom bolt being secured first will help hold the winch up so you don't have to fight against it. The next step will be the installation of the wheel. Directions for the installation of the wheel will be included with the winch. After the installation of the winch and the wheel, we will now move to the next step, which is the installation of the cradle frame. There are multiple ways to install the cradle frame. We have found it easiest to lay a 2x4 from corner to corner in order to brace the cradle frame while you install it. You will notice that on one end of the cradle frame, on the cable, there is no thread. This will go on the corner that your winch is and will connect to your winch. In this step, you'll notice that there is a 15/16 nut and a 5/8 bolt that are connected to the cradle frame. You will want to remove the nut and the lock nut that are with it. Make sure you do not pull the bolt out or else the pulley will fall away from its position. After differentiating your left and right spreaders, you will want to connect it where you have just removed the lock nut and the bolt. You will notice there is a hole in the center of the bracket where this bolt goes through. You will also notice on the spreader frames that there is a large threaded bolt and a small threaded bolt. The small threaded bolt always goes towards the bottom of the lift, and the large bolt always goes upwards. Tighten this bolt after you have put the frame spreader and the cradle frame together. After hand tightening the 15/16 nut, you will now grab the remaining 3/8 by 1 inch bolts, and you will connect and secure the cradle frame and the frame spreader. This is completed using a 9/16 wrench. After securing both frame spreaders to the cradle frame on the winch end of the lift, we will now move to the opposite side and repeat the process where we will remove the 15/16 nut, making sure that the bolt does not fall out. Then you will repeat the process with the 3/8 bolts and securing the back end of the cradle frame to the frame spreader, the cradle frame spreaders. After completing the cradle frame assembly, you will now install the cable into the winch. The cable always runs on the back side of the winch drum towards the post. For further details on how to install the cable properly, you will need to consult the instruction manual included with the winch. In the next step, we will run the cables to their appropriate places. You will need the 5/8 washers and the 5/8 nuts that are included with the bolt pack. You will want to start with the cables that attach to the lower part of the cradle frame. You'll be able to differentiate to which bolts go where because of the length. The shorter bolts are always on the lower level of the lift. You will want to tighten the nut to where it meets the end of the thread. After the bottom cable bolts have been secured, you will now want to pull the slack out of the cable and run your top bolts through their appropriate places. These are also secured using the 5/8 washers and lock nuts that are provided with the bolt assembly kit. You will only do this on 3 of the corners. On the 2 corners opposite of the winch, you will notice that there are 2 holes where 2 of the bolts that are connected to the cables will run through. Leaving the cradle frame on the wood, you will now make the appropriate adjustments to the cable bolts. You will notice that there are 2 different gauges in the cables. You will want to find the thicker one on the rear side of the lift, and you will want to make an adjustment of that where the cradle frame is just barely lifted off the wood. Moving to the other side, you will want to repeat the process on the same thickness cable. Now we will begin our adjustment on the thinner gauge cable on the rear of the lift. You will want to tighten this to where it's taut, but not as taut as a banjo string. The final step in the lift assembly is greasing the winch cable. You will want to use a wheel bearing grease to do this and do it annually. Go from the cradle frame to where the cable leads into the winch motor.